1st of May. Call order of a regular meeting, Goodyear City Council. Here has this one. Would you please follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lord, we ask your blessing for those who are in danger with the hurricanes occurring in the east and southeast. We also want to recall those who were sacrificed on 9/11 of 2001 and ask for your blessing on those and their surviving families. We want to also, of course, remember those who are serving our country in Afghanistan and Iraq, and we want, of course, the Lord's blessing on those who serve this city. Amen.
Amen.
All members of council are in attendance. We don't have any expenditures to approve or ratify. We do have 2 items on communications, however, this evening. We have 2 awards we'd like to present. Why don't we start with Councilmember Souza and the AMRRP award.
This Award of Excellence is being presented to the City of Goodyear. The Bronze Award in recognition of outstanding achievement and continual excellence in risk management and control of losses. And I'd like to make this presentation to Dean Kokenauer, who is our risk manager and has been very, very effective in establishing claims cost control in our city. And that's the reason we're presenting this plaque on behalf of the AMRRP, which I am a trustee of. Congratulations, sir.
Okay, now we also received the award from Valley Forward. It was Saturday evening, and the Vice Mayor, if you would present that.
Is it okay if I go down that?
Yes,
I'm gonna give it
absolutely.
to staff. I guess I have to turn towards. I haven't done this before, but yeah, real quick, Mayor and Council and staff, myself and 3 of my colleagues on Saturday evening had the opportunity to accept an award on your behalf. Valley Forward, which is a leader in environmental stewardship from the private sector and the public sector. They've been around since 1969 in the Valley and have really led a very strong effort for corporate responsibility and public responsibility and environmental stewardship. Every year have a series of awards, and I'm going to butcher this, but called the Criscordia Awards. And these are environmental excellence awards for specific programs, specific buildings, specific campaigns, educational campaigns, and the sort. And we were entered into, and I believe by staff, into the environmental education communication category. I think there was about 17 or 18 categories on Saturday night. And we were amongst the likes of the City of Phoenix and the City of Mesa and the City of Scottsdale and Glendale. We definitely were the smallest city represented in the audience, and during even all the Merit Awards as well during the evening. And our famed or infamous Kirby education, environmental education and communication campaign that was around our trash and recycling program, as many of us up here know, maybe some of you in the audience know and staff knows, staff put this campaign together literally in about 60 days. They used minimal resources. They used internal resources, a few external resources, I assume, but mainly it was all inside our house and inside our city hall that made this program successful. Literally, in our category, we were up against the specific ones we were up against were City of Mesa and a recycling program that they have, and the City of Phoenix and a recycling education program that they have. And lo and behold, after those 2 were read off, we all got nervous at the table, I think. Oh my gosh, we're actually winning this award, because it was pretty cool. If anybody's driven through downtown Phoenix or out into Tempe or Mesa, you've seen a lot of the new development along light rail and and a variety of other things. These were the people that were being recognized that evening. And so for a program that was a collaboration between two departments, but specifically between Paula Yardo's department and Cato Esquivel's department, I wanted to present this. But we all know that Kathy Hosian, I think, and Michael Leon had a significant part in this project. And so with that, I'm going to pass along this award. It's the Criscordia, and it says, "To Grow in Harmony, winner of the Environmental Education Communication Public Sector City of Goodyear Automated Curbside Trash and Recycling Campaign from Valley Forward." So that's for Paula and Cato to decide what they, or argue over at a director's meeting. No, I'm just kidding. And decide where you're going to display this on City Hall. But I'll pass along, I guess, to the city manager. Congratulations. We would have been able to accept it. You guys didn't.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor and Councilmember Souza. And, of course, compliments to the entire staff. Everybody is involved in one way or another in these awards, so thank you very much.
One note, and not to give credit back here, but I think I sat in an advance or a retreat, and we decided that we were going to go after this program, and if the 6 of my colleagues didn't have the courage to take down the most popular program in our city and make a change to it, they wouldn't have that opportunity. So the 6 of you deserve a lot of credit as well.
Okay, thank you. Opportunity now for any citizen to comment, to address the council on any subject which is not on this evening's agenda. Would anyone like to comment on a non-agenda item? Seeing none, we'll move to consent. Just a quick preview of the meeting. It's going to be atypical, I think. We'll do the consent. There is no business item on the agenda for this evening, but then we have our city manager who wants to talk about 5 items of import in this particular time, and one of those are the allegations made by a couple of the employees. So I'd encourage the citizenry to hang around and the press to hang around for that. Okay, consent agenda, and I'll ask the clerk to read the consent items by title only, please.
Item A, approve draft minutes of a special meeting held on August 18, 2008. Item B, approve a request from Robert Vivian, representing P.F. Chang's China Bistro, for a Series 12 liquor license number 1207778 for P.F. Chang's China Bistro, located at 14681 West McDowell Road on the southeast corner of McDowell Road and Bullard Avenue. Item C, approve the final plat for Estrella Phase 2, parcel 5.14, subdividing 54.83 acres into 34 single-family residential lots, generally located south of West Star Drive and approximately 3,500 feet west of Estrella Parkway, subject to the stipulations contained within the staff report. Item D, approve the final plat for Pebble Creek Phase 2, Unit 53, subdividing 21.8 acres into 83 single-family lots and 2 tracts generally located at the northwest corner of Clubhouse Drive and McDowell Road within the Pebble Creek Planned Area Development, subject to stipulations. Item E, approve the final plat for Pebble Creek Phase 2, Unit 54, subdividing 50.35 acres into 82 single-family lots and 11 tracts generally located north of the northwest corner of Clubhouse Drive and McDowell Road within the Pebble Creek Planned Area Development, subject to stipulations. Item F, adopt Ordinance 08-1136, extending and increasing the corporate limits of the City of Goodyear, Maricopa County, State of Arizona, pursuant to the provisions of Title IX, Chapter 4, Article 7, Arizona Revised Statutes, and amendments thereto, by annexing the Citrus Road rights-of-way from McDowell Road to Indian School Road, which are contiguous to the existing city limits of the City of Goodyear. Item G, authorize the city manager to execute a professional services contract with Burgess & Nyepel in the amount of $101,180 to provide engineering services for the decommissioning of the soil aquifer treatment facility. Item H, approve an amendment to a special use to allow an AT&T wireless communication facility monopom on .01 acres at a different location within the Tuscany Falls RV storage facility and maintenance yard generally located west of the southwest corner of Indian School Road and Saraville Avenue in the Pebble Creek Planned Area Development District, subject to stipulations. Item I, approve the issuance of a utility easement Quest Corporation within the Ballpark Village Wood Corporate Campus project area to allow the placement of the equipment necessary to provide telecommunications service.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone in the public wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Would anyone on council wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Councilmember Cavalier?
Yes, because of my conflict of interest with my wife working for Civica, I'd like to pull 7I.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, why don't we vote then on everything from 7A to 7H? Is that all right? Okay. Could I have a motion on 7A to 7H?
I move we accept 7A to H as read by the city clerk.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Lord and a second from Vice Mayor Antoniak. Roll call vote?
Vice Mayor Antoniak?
Aye.
Councilmember Sousa?
Aye.
Councilmember Cavalier?
Aye.
Councilmember Lord?
Aye.
Councilmember Holland?
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne?
Aye.
Mayor Kavanaugh?
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Okay, thank you. Now, Councilmember Cavalier is recusing himself. Any further discussion on the utility easement to Quest Corporation for Ballpark Village? Seeing that, I don't think I need a roll call here, do I? No. Okay, could I have a motion to approve 7I?
I'll move.
Second.
Motion from Councilmember Sousa, a second from Vice Mayor Antoniak. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Completes our consent agenda. As stated, we don't have an item on our business agenda. We'll move now to information. Opportunity for any person on council to comment on any subject of current interest to them or their involvement. Councilmember Lord.
I attended the Green Summit Expo conference this week. This is the second one I've attended on solar, and it was to promote green building and efficiency through solar power. But there was a statement made, and I thought it was so profound. It said, if you are not making it green, it will fundamentally, would you give me that word, please? Thank you, everybody. Obsolete the day your building opens and economically at a disadvantage. And that really raised some questions in my mind because I don't think we really have a policy. I know that staff is working on it, and I've heard we have an expert on staff now with the city center that knows a lot about LEED certification. So, but it's something we might want to keep in mind to actually set a policy. And we can mirror Scottsdale. They have a very good program. In fact, they have an Office of Environmental Initiatives, and they also have a Citizens Committee. So I just throw that out to us that maybe that's something we want to look into. Sure. And thank you for helping that word.
Sure. Councilmember Holland.
I got an opportunity to attend the Westmark retreat on Friday, and it was good to hear the committees that have been put together with the city people and with the private businesses out there. And of course, the one that I really, really liked, Sean, is the Water Committee. And so I've asked for more information on that, and would like to discuss it with you and David, wherever David is sitting, and just see if there's anything that we can contribute there. So, thank you.
That doesn't surprise us, you know that.
I know.
Councilmember Sousa.
Sure. I'd like to thank Councilman Holland for standing in for me
Thank you.
on West Park.
Yeah.
Okay.
I couldn't make it because of illness, and I appreciate being there for me.
Okay. I was in Laramie at the end of last week at the League of Cities Transportation Infrastructure Committee meeting, and it's a very good meeting, actually. And the League of Cities is definitely going on record as opposing Secretary Peters' latest recommendations on transportation, which she is making it more difficult, and that's her prerogative, for local agencies and states to proceed with transportation projects unless they've clearly identified and analyzed the relationship between public and private in the construction of future roadways. Also, she's recommending the elimination of municipal planning organizations and replacement by others. So there's some significant changes that are being considered. And then the big thing is the $8 billion that our people in Washington can't decide on whether we should have or not. The $8 billion, by the way, in transportation is not additional money. It's to fund what they owe us. And so the $8 billion is necessary, and we understand that the President has agreed to it, the House has agreed to it, and the Senate will decide this week about what they're going to do on that $8 billion. You read about it in the paper this morning. Several projects are affected by that. Fortunately, I-10 in Goodyear is not yet, but that fifth lane could be affected if you don't get this Transportation Trust Fund, and this as one issue, and the $8 billion as another. So, anyway, it was a good meeting, but things are not bright in the transportation arena today. Okay, opportunity now for the city manager to discuss current events, and then he'd also like his special subject, which he'll address.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. I have 5 items I'd like to address this evening. First, I believe it was Councilmember Sousa asked last week about the water meters on the accounts payable, and I did provide yellow papers for each of these items, but I will just review that for the benefit of the public very quickly. There were 5 different categories listed, all under water meters, and that was the basic question. What that was, though, was that Bank of America was listed for $373.85, and that was to purchase 1,000 water meter tags, which are placed on the meter boxes outside of any facility with some information on who to call and so forth. So that's what that was for. The next item was Dana Kepner Company, Inc., and that was for $56,195, and that was for parts and meters. That's the basic meters that the city uses. And that is for inventory and needs and parts that we need during the season. Number 3 was HD Supply Waterworks, and that was $3,950, and that's basically for reclaimed water meters, and so that was that item, and that's why that was separately listed. 4th is the Hernandez Companies, Inc., and that was for the installation of a new 8-inch combination meter at the Phoenix Goodyear Airport. And that's a specialized meter, and that cost $8,164. And the last item was the Arizona Department of Revenue, which is for sales tax on those previous items, and we don't have any way to really allocate that to each item, and that's why that was listed as a separate item. That was $31.44. That's why there were 5 items under water meters. We do buy basically from one vendor, because it's the only vendor in the state actually to sell those, that sells those. So that's basically why. Are there
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Secondly, and I'll just keep going, and if there's any questions, feel free to interrupt me. Secondly, I think it was Ms. Osborne that asked about GPEC, the Greater Economic Council for Phoenix, for the Phoenix area. Goodyear and other communities in Maricopa County all belong to, most of them belong to GPEC. There are 18 members in Maricopa County right now, and we contribute $21,805 for this year's dues. The budget for GPEC is $4,559,000 for the year. As I mentioned, most of the cities in Maricopa County are in this. I won't bother to read them. The Economic Development Directors Team is a team that we have a seat on by the very fact that we pay dues, and that team meets and kind of guides the organization on their efforts. And the part of the city's contract with GPEC, Goodyear also receives one board member seat, and that is taken by Councilmember Lord, and that's for, and Georgia may have something to say after this, but that's a very important seat and something that she contributes greatly to in the efforts that we have with GPEC. The dues are calculated by a formula that is Maricopa Association of Governments population estimate multiplied by a certain dollar amount, and that's right now 38.97 cents per person. And based upon the population that is used for the 2007 population, which was 55,954, the dues were $21,805, and so that's how the dues were calculated. What has GPEC done for the city of Goodyear in the past year or two? We can directly attribute 3 of the recent businesses in Goodyear coming to Goodyear to GPEC, starting the process and helping us with it, although the city certainly played the key role in getting them here once they were identified. Those are the Cancer Treatment Centers of America, Macy's Fulfillment Center, and Amazon.com Fulfillment Center. These businesses, when they're fully operational, will have the following results for the city of Goodyear. 2,000 new jobs in Goodyear from GPEC-assisted locates and approximately 1,000 seasonal jobs. $234 million in capital investment, $59 million in new payrolls, absorption of 1.1 million square feet in new and existing industrial space, and 212,000 square feet of new hospital space. So it's rather significant numbers from that standpoint. So the thing that's important to us, and we are going to, I know that there's some differences as to what is the benefit of GPEC and what isn't the benefit. So we are going to have GPEC come out and talk to the council probably in October, November timeframe, and we're going to have design a work session around that so there can be some give and take on that particular subject. And so that is my report on GPEC. I don't know, Councilmember Lord, if you'd like to add anything?
Well, first you have a question. Go ahead.
My concern with GPEC has always been that we don't really get the impact from economic development of how important a part they play on acquisition, i.e. the 3 that you cited here this evening, Mr. City Manager. I'm not sold on the concept that they were that important, or GPEC was that important in our acquisition of these 3 individuals. I'd like to hear from Harry relative to all 3 items. So what impact did GPEC play in our acquisition of these three firms?
Mr. Mayor and Councilmember Sousa and members of the council, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate the question. It's often a question that comes up in economic development. What role do they play? I think to begin to answer your question, the first thing I would say is in economic development, to be successful, it's much more than one organization, especially in regional economies. And representing several different communities, as GPEC does throughout the area, helps us tremendously in terms of the broader reach that we have. And so it's evident in each of those stories, whether it's Cancer Treatment Centers of America, whether it's Macy's, or whether it's Amazon.com, the relationship that GPEC has generated through each of those different key individuals or site selectors, and they're all a little bit different. The Cancer Treatment Centers of America story is definitely different in the sense that they first received the response from Cancer Treatment Centers of America. In fact, talking with the GPEC last week, in fact, that was a specific sales mission where they went out and contacted Cancer Treatment Centers of America, and then there was other contact, and so they received a request at GPEC to send out an RFP. And so Goodyear was one of the fortunate communities that received that RFP and was looked on favorably. Of course, it went to Phoenix initially. Gilbert was also in the running, but because Goodyear left such a strong impression, we were fortunate to win that project. That's one example there. Macy's is a different example to where that was directly driven by site selectors and the corporate Macy's, working with the Greater Phoenix Economic Council in many different meetings before they had even sent out those initial requests to the communities. Amazon.com was a little bit different story because the year before they had developed a site in Phoenix. And so they had developed a relationship with GPEC, and GPEC did a lot of work to work with Amazon in finding that location and convincing them that the Phoenix Valley was a great opportunity for them, looking at costs, looking at labor market. And so a lot of the work that was done prior to the Amazon.com location here we benefited from the fact that GPEC had done a lot of work the year before. They also had conversations with Amazon.com about the Goodyear facility, but because they nurtured that relationship, that helped us tremendously when they were looking at another location here in the Phoenix Valley, and we were basically competing with a site on 51st Avenue in Phoenix. So in each case, although they're a little bit different in each case, they're very important in the relationships that they nurture, the broader reach that we have because we're a part of GPEC, where we wouldn't necessarily have that opportunity in many of those cases. You know, GPEC covers probably over 40 sales missions and trade shows throughout the year. We can't go to all of those. We can, probably even participate in a quarter of those and be able to do the necessary work that needs to be done. So the reach that GPEC has is a tremendous benefit to us in the fact that we're able to reach the larger market. They do a lot of work to qualify the leads that come and the prospects that come. That also eliminates a lot of time that would be on our shoulders if we weren't a member. And so there's a great benefit. Each story's a little bit different depending on how that relationship started, how it's nurtured through GPEC, and when we get involved.
Well, I think it's important from your standpoint and the people that you represent on your staff that council is aware of this involvement from GPEC. There's a lot of times, particularly in the Cancer Treatment Center of America, there was credit taken by your predecessor that she was involved in getting this contact. And so that's where I'm leaning. That's where I'm coming from. And that's my concern here. I really, not until, we've had these three entities coming, these three firms coming to the city of Goodyear, have I seen anything coming from GPEC. And yeah, we've had some bites, but we haven't been able to take in the fish in the final catch. So but I'll defer to my the member of the council that sits on GPEC for it.
With all due respect to you, sir, and to the city was not ready. It's plain and simple. We weren't that further in development. We really didn't have it. We didn't have some of the infrastructure we have now. And we didn't have the other companies in it. We weren't a great attraction. And it wasn't they weren't working for us, we just didn't have it. And when they started this shovel-ready program, do you agree that that was certainly a stimulant to businesses?
Most definitely.
And would you just quickly tell them what shovel-ready
Sure.
is?
One of the things that GPEC's done this last couple of years, in fact, is recognize the fact that the Phoenix Valley has been touted, or not touted, but has been tagged, so to speak, as not being very fast in processing the ability to get a business up and running. One of the biggest issues that we face and businesses face is a time to market. And so one of the things that GPEC did was put together a shovel-ready program that they announce out to the broader market. And we can do that as well, and we do, but they have a much broader reach than we do, much broader reach in terms of the region as well as across the country to let the brokerage community and corporate America know that within 90 days, if we have sites that are shovel-ready, meaning that they're zoned, and the infrastructure, the major infrastructure is to the site, then within 90 days, hopefully they'll be able to pull a permit. Now that means that they have to really be in place, and they have to be at the top of their game and in the top of the list for their architects and engineers. But that can be possible, and we experienced that to some degree with Cancer Treatment Centers of America. And even though it wasn't completely a shovel-ready site, it can be done. And so that helps us tremendously as well.
The other thing that I want to mention is that they're now working with the international market. And so I sit on this international committee, and the committee is comprised of businessmen who are constantly going back and forth to Europe and to the Far East. And they're kind of schluffing information to their counterparts over there. Otherwise, they have a business trip already on there. And on the sidebar, they help GPEC with some things. And also, we've hired consultants in those countries. And so by sitting on this board, we get people coming in that speak from these different countries. It gives us the opportunity to have a one-on-one with them. We talk to them. I sent a booklet. What is the out of the Arizona Business Magazine? Remember you did the booklet? Yes.
Oh, Business
I
Inc.,
took
yes.
that and we created a letter and I sent it to everybody on the board plus the international board saying we wanted to get you to know our city a little bit more. So I sent that to them, hoping, what I really wanted to do is I wanted them to take it with them to Japan and Europe and drop it off. That was overstepping my ability on the GPEC board, so we just gave it to them to increase their information on Goodyear. So I truly think, that we need to do this, and we need to keep a good relationship. The more we're face-to-face with GPEC, the more of the name is there, and you know when you want to go out and get something and you're communicating with them, you're always in their face, they're going to remember who you are. And you got to keep your name out there, and I think that isn't eloquently said, but that's just the name of the game.
I think, you should keep in mind, and also the economic director should keep in mind, that we want to know, I personally want to know, from the standpoint of sitting in the council, of how involved GPEC is. Don't take the thunder away from you, but if they are involved, and they are a reason for us getting acquisitions, then certainly credit should go to them. But by the same token, you're in your position to do the same thing, and I would hope that you can work out something with GPEC.
Well, what would you say the advertising program would cost us as a city? If we took over, say we stopped GPEC and we decide, okay, we're going to take this over, what do you think it would cost the city?
Well, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, we could not do and have the reach that GPEC provides for us. If, for example, in some of the different magazines, site selection magazines, take for example, in order just to put together, say, a full-page ad, and to do that consistently over a series of time, we would go far beyond the 21,000 that we currently contribute, or almost 22,000 we contribute to GPEC to be a part of that membership. In fact, if you look at some of the best ways to advertise these days in terms of economic development, through a survey that was recently done by Development Counselors International, where they contacted over almost 300 CEOs and site selectors that responded. The main things that they look at, of course, is that personal relationship and also a website. Those are some of the best advertising tools you have. Advertising, in terms of print advertising, is way down the list. We definitely have a website that helps us, but the more websites that we're connected to, and when someone's looking at the Phoenix Valley, they're not necessarily looking at a Goodyear or communities in East Valley. I understand what you're saying, but the broader world doesn't know Goodyear, and so we're able to get that out there when they start looking at the Phoenix Valley, and that's what they generally think. But then they know it's going to come down to a community somewhere, and so we're in that game. I appreciate your question, and I understand what you're saying, but I have to go back to the fact that economic development and successful economic development is really never about one organization. Especially in a regional economy, it's about many organizations coming together. And it takes a lot and we definitely compete nationally and across the world for some projects. Having the Phoenix Valley, having that recognition of the Phoenix Economic Development Council, which is also recognized as one of the better ones in the country, helps us tremendously.
I appreciate your response.
Thank you. And I appreciate your points, and we'll find ways to be more responsive to council.
Absolutely. I can come back and report from these different meetings, and I'll do that, by golly. Okay?
Boy, I opened a can of worms.
No, I don't think it's a can of worms. I think it's a lack of information, and I agree. I think that the first few years I was on this council, I felt that same way. I didn't know what anybody was doing, and everybody attends meetings, but we don't come back and report it. We just say we attended it. And so it takes a little more time on our part, but maybe we do need to have some kind of reporting process. You got it. You're going to get it. Calling you at midnight.
Use trust.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the next item I believe was asked by Mr. Antoniak, and that's the council's inquiry on collection of development fees. And basically, the question was asked, is there different ways to treat the payment of development fees and impact fees and permit fees? Arizona statutes require that the municipalities the Arizona statutes provide the authority for the municipalities to assess development fees. Development fees imposed by a municipality are certainly designed to offset the costs which providing public services will cost us. Specifically, the statutes provide that fees are collected at time of permit issuance, but fees may be deferred if you have a development agreement which allows for the deferral of the fees and are supported by a financial surety, so that, you don't get into the situation where somebody goes bankrupt and you don't get the fees, but you have the costs.
Bankruptcy.
Thus, the intent of the statutes is to clearly require that the collection of fees be at the time of building permit issuance. Section 9.86 of the City Code further requires that the development fees be paid at the time of issuance of the permit. If the city wishes to change that, we certainly can by requiring development agreements in each of the situations. However, we don't think that historically that the city has entered into these agreements with developers to collect fees. We always require that they be paid at the time of permit issuance. So it's just a method that we believe is best, even if we have a development agreement. We just think it's best to require that the fees be paid up front. The other factor is that the costs occur up front. And so we get some of this money from the developers, and it pays for the costs of doing business. Any deferral of development fees would need to be accompanied by financial security, and that, of course, adds an additional expense for the developer. So if you design it to save money, it might actually cost them more in the long run. So quite frankly, the statutes require that we collect it up front. The city code requires that we collect it up front. So really there is no option given the current codes. The option would be to go through development agreements.
Wow. And that doesn't take care of bankruptcies.
It would if you required the surety.
Yeah, surety, but
And that's similar to the ballpark right now, for example.
the temperature of our business community and retail community, timing doesn't sound too good.
No. Any other questions or comments on that? The next item is the future use of the interim office building. Ms. Osborne asked this question, I believe, and we have taken a look at this, and the staff is continually discussing the future use of this building as the city center comes closer and closer. The situation we're facing right now that is Bonita Building E, basically is the police fire administration. They are in there until 2010. That's when the lease expires. And that's about the time that we are moving out of City Hall, or the IOB. And so it's good timing from that standpoint. So one of the options, obviously, is that the public safety would go into the IOB. What we're doing right now is taking a look at what the costs will be, because there are significant costs, especially assuming that you would move the telecommunications into that building from Litchfield Road. That will add a lot of costs. So we are looking at what those costs will be and how long the facility might last for public safety. In addition, we are looking at keeping IT in that building. The cost of relocating it into a new city hall would be approximately $13 million. And so in order to avoid those costs, and we can do some fiber optic and stuff for $1 million and avoid the other $12 million, we're seriously looking at that as an option. So IT will take about, I don't have the number, about 8,000 square feet. And the building's roughly 35,000 square feet right now. Another factor that we have to at least consider is the APS use of the facility, the small part of the facility that they use. And so we are looking at that. That's certainly not a decision breaker, but it is something that we have to consider as a landlord. There's always the option, the final option is the IOB selling it on the open market, getting what we can from it, putting that money into the future capital improvements program. So that is the final option that we're looking at. Right now, we are leaning towards making it a public safety administration building and an ITS building, and that will be carefully looked at as we develop the costs for the radio and telecommunications changes.
That's very good.
Thank you. At this point, I'd like to present two, and I put them by each of your tables, two statements regarding the recent allegations that have been made. So if you,
Mr. Fishback?
yes.
a question. Is Miss Mary Greener and Miss Patricia Miller present in the audience this evening?
No, they aren't. They asked me if I could defer this for a week, and I said no. I had to get it back to the public because the public was involved, and the council asked me to bring it back.
Okay, what
They
is
are
the-
probably watching it on the internet.
What is their reasoning for not being here in person?
I can't answer that. I do know that Mary Greener just went through some surgery, and so she is recovering, and
Okay.
I honestly don't know.
All right, thank you very much, sir.
Okay, first is respond to the Mary Greener allegations. Excuse me. On Monday, August 25th, 2008, Mary Greener and her sister, Patricia Miller, came before you and made a number of allegations and asked a number of questions of city staff. I was asked to provide a response during the next regularly scheduled council meeting. This is my response. At the conclusion of this presentation, I will respond to Ms. Miller's financial questions. Before responding to the specific allegations made by Mary Greener and her sister, it is important to provide you some context. On or about April 28, 2008, Mary Greener filed a complaint against the current IT director, Kathy Fernandez. This complaint was in response to disciplinary action taken on Ms. Greener previously in connection with an incident that occurred on April 22, 2008, where Ms. Greener exhibited an inappropriate emotional outburst at two co-workers. The allegations in Ms. Greener's complaint included events that predated Ms. Fernandez's tenure with the city that involved purported wrongdoing by the former interim IT director, Jesse Cisneros, who served in that position from April 2, 2007 until on or about June 11, 2007. Normally, I would not use names, but Mr. Cisneros did not object because of Ms. Greener's public accusations against him. Ms. Greener's complaint was investigated, but there was no evidence to support a claim that her current manager had engaged in discriminatory conduct under federal anti-discrimination laws. Instead, Ms. Greener's complaints involved her general displeasure with the management of her department. Accordingly, on May 1, 2008, Ms. Greener was advised that her complaint was being closed because there was no evidence of a violation of the federal anti-discrimination laws. On July 29, 2008, Ms. Greener sent an email advising that on May 2, 2008, she had filed a complaint with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the federal agency charged with enforcing the federal anti-discrimination laws, and that she had retained counsel to pursue her rights regarding the disposition of public records and other purported improprieties on the part of city staff. Although Ms. Greener stated she had filed her complaint on May 2nd, to date we have received nothing from the EEOC. With this background, I will address each of Ms. Greener's allegations. First, direction to staff concerning communications with Ms. Greener. Ms. Greener alleges that staff has been directed not to communicate directly with Ms. Greener, but to direct her questions to the city attorney. This is true. This action was taken for two reasons. First, Ms. Greener has repeatedly threatened legal action against the city involving her employment with the city, purported whistleblowers' claims, and claims involving the city's responses to public records. Second, staff's experience has been that Ms. Greener is not receptive to receiving information that is contrary to her perceptions. Under the circumstances, the best way to protect the city was to channel communications through the city attorney's office. 2. Removal of backup tapes. Ms. Greener claimed that in June 2007, the former interim IT director, Jesse Cisneros, removed backup tapes from the IT department. This was partially true. In June 2007, certain backup tapes were turned over to Lightstone Solutions, a computer forensics consulting company, in connection with an investigation into concerns that certain members of the ITS department were inappropriately accessing the email accounts and calendars of other city staff. The investigation has been completed, and the tapes are in the control of a forensic computer company and have recently been transferred to the control of the city attorney and are being maintained in a secure, fireproof environment. These tapes have never been outside the control of the city. They have always been either in a city person's hands or under the control of the city's contract employee. At all times in this process, all citizen and employee personal information was only in possession of the city. It was never compromised. 3. Allegations involving the former IT director. Ms. Greener levied the following allegations against Mr. Cisneros, claiming that during his approximate 2.5-month tenure as interim IT director, Mr. Cisneros, 1, was selling positions in the department, 2, along with the finance department, buried rebates from computer vendors, 3, worked on his private consulting business during working hours, and 4, reduced his email database following a records request from the West Valley View for his emails. Although Ms. Greener claims to have proof of this wrongdoing, she has not provided me that proof, even after repeated requests. She claimed that when the tapes are restored, we would have the proof. Well, the tapes are restored, and we have found no proof, whatever. She did provide me with copies of a couple of Jesse Cisneros' emails, but they proved nothing. Accordingly, I have had staff conduct an investigation of Ms. Greener's allegations. The investigation included, at substantial expense, the restoration of relevant email accounts from the 6 backup tapes that had been removed in June 2007, and a review of these emails by city legal staff. All of this was done at a substantial cost to the taxpayers of Goodyear. 4. Selling positions. I have checked with HR. Mr. Cisneros did not hire anyone during his approximate 2.5-month tenure as an interim IT director, so it would have been impossible for him to have sold a position. Moreover, legal staff located no emails to or from Jesse Cisneros supporting Ms. Greener's allegations that Mr. Cisneros was selling jobs. 5. Rebates. Ms. Greener claims that Mr. Cisneros and finance buried rebates from computer vendors. There was an email exchange between Mr. Cisneros and staff in the finance department in which Mr. Cisneros was questioning the existence of rebates from Gateway. Although he was told there were nominal rebates, he was also told by finance staff that they preferred to have lower-priced merchandise rather than rebates. Mr. Cisneros did just that, switching vendors to a state contract with HP under which he received more favorable terms, resulting in a savings to the city of approximately $60,000 annually. If Ms. Greener has documentation to prove her allegations, she should provide the evidence, otherwise there is nothing further to investigate. 6. Outside consulting. Ms. Greener claims she has proof that Mr. Cisneros was engaged in outside consulting during his tenure as the interim IT director. The city's administrative policies and guidelines do not prohibit such employment. Rather, they allow for secondary employment provided certain conditions are met. Specifically, he is required to obtain the written permission of the city manager or his deputy city manager, and he is not entitled to use city facilities or equipment absent authorization by the city manager or deputy city manager. Mr. Cisneros obtained the written permission of the then city manager to engage in secondary employment. Moreover, a review of Mr. Cisneros' emails reflect a minimal and not necessarily an inappropriate level of outside activity by Mr. Cisneros during work. 7. Deletion of emails. Ms. Greener also accuses Mr. Cisneros of deleting emails in response to a public records request from the West Valley View for his emails. According to Ms. Greener, Mr. Cisneros, quote, reduced his email database by 1/3 from 300 megabytes to 200 megabytes after a records request was received from the West Valley View, close quote. The clerk's office maintains a log of all public records requests. According to the city clerk's log, there was only one request for Jesse Cisneros' emails in 2007. That request was from Sarah Bisker, now Drew, of the West Valley View, for emails between Jesse Cisneros and Beth Manis, the former IT department administrative assistant, between April 2, 2007 and May 24, 2007, the date Ms. Manis' employment with the city was terminated. Assuming the deletion of the emails occurred, the purported deletion of emails is relevant only if emails between Mr. Cisneros and Ms. Manis had been deleted. More importantly, the data dump Ms. Greener is talking of predated the public records request. Mr. Cisneros did reduce his email database from 358,656 kilobytes to 212,260 kilobytes on May 27, 2007. Sarah Bisker's public records request for emails between Jesse Cisneros and Beth Manis was received after that date. I have been presented with no evidence that the deletion of emails involved an attempt to circumvent a public records request rather than merely routine maintenance we all must perform on our computer system. 8. Allegations of mobbing. Ms. Greener has repeatedly alleged that mobbing or bullying has occurred within the IT department. In the complaint she filed against the current IT director, Ms. Greener links her claims of mobbing to the disciplinary action taken against her and the turnover in the department. As has been her pattern, Ms. Greener takes a fact, that is the resignation of certain employees, and then, without full facts, draws unwarranted conclusions. Ms. Greener is not in management, and management does, to the extent permitted by law, what it can to protect the privacy of current and former employees. Ms. Greener does not know the facts surrounding the resignations of her former colleagues, and management is not going to discuss this with Ms. Greener, and will continue to protect the privacy of those involved. 9. Response to public records requests. In other communications sent to the press, Ms. Greener has accused city staff of providing outdated reports or records in response to her records requests and of not timely responding to requests. Ms. Greener is under the impression, based on her interpretation of Arizona's public records law, that she is entitled to immediate access to records and that the city has to date with the most current information any records requested. According to our attorney, the law requires production to be made, quote, promptly, close quote. But what constitutes, quote, promptly depends upon the nature of the request. For example, we recently had an extensive request from one of the newspapers that took a couple of weeks to process because of the need of our attorneys to redact the documents or to cull from the responses documents that were not subject to production. Similarly, and according to the city's attorneys, the law does not require the creation of a record in response to a public record request or the updating of an existing record. The city is required to produce the document that exists in the form it exists when requested. For instance, in early August, Ms. Greener's sister requested a copy of an annual report that is required to be filed with the Arizona Department of Revenue. The report was not required to be filed until mid-September, and Ms. Miller was advised that the report did not exist and that she would need to request the report at a later date after the filing deadline. There was no obligation on the part of the city to prepare and file the report prior to the filing deadline in order to produce the information requested by Ms. Miller. Clearly, Ms. Greener and her sister believe the law requires something different, but staff will continue to respond to public records requests pursuant to our attorney's interpretation of the statutory requirements, and we are prepared to defend ourselves against any claims filed by Ms. Greener or her sister that we have not complied with the requirements of Arizona's public records law. 10. Failure to provide Mary Greener with information regarding the status of backup tapes. During the council meeting on August 25th, Ms. Greener suggested that there had been some mishandling of the backup tapes. If they had been handled appropriately, her questions would have been answered long ago. When the tapes were removed in June of 2007, for obvious reasons, management was not going to disclose that an investigation was underway. Following the completion of the investigation, Lightstone Solutions was instructed to retain possession should they be needed in the future. No further thought was given to the disposition of the tapes until Mary Greener's April 28th complaint. My understanding is that Ms. Greener's April 28th complaint was the first formal allegation concerning the backup tapes. Brian Dahlke had scheduled a meeting with Ms. Greener on May 1st to discuss the allegations contained in her submittal. However, on April 30th, 2008, Mary went out on leave and canceled the meeting. Had Ms. Greener met with Brian, she would have been provided the information that I shared in my email following Ms. Greener's comments during Monday night's meeting. I must point out that Ms. Greener has challenged the account of the backup tapes and who has had possession. I have checked this thoroughly and can attest to the city's version of the story. 11. Future dealings. At her request, I recently met with Ms. Greener. Our conversation was illuminating in that it further demonstrated Ms. Greener's willingness to attack anyone in the city, elected officials and staff included, without any evidentiary support or with only limited information. The following is a brief summary of the attacks she made during our meeting and what actions she believes need to be taken. 12. Allegations against the mayor. During our meeting, she levied allegations of conflicts of interest of the mayor and his wife, claiming that the mayor had an interest in the ballpark and that his wife is an investor in Goodyear Baseball, LLC. As is typical, her claims are without benefit of any, quote, proof, close quote. The ballpark, the training complexes, and the parking parcels are owned by the city of Goodyear. The remaining property in Ballpark Village, Wood Corporate Campus, is owned by the Wood family through various entities they have established. The property ownership is a matter of public record had Ms. Greener bothered to check. Her allegation that the mayor's wife is an investor in Goodyear Baseball, LLC, is also debunked by a review of public records available online at the Arizona Corporation Commission's website. According to the amended and restated Articles of Organization of Goodyear Baseball, LLC, there are only 2 members of Goodyear Baseball, LLC. 1, Civica Development, LLC, and 2, JMI Sports, LLC. Mrs. Kavanaugh is not a member of Goodyear Baseball, LLC. Moreover, Eric Judson confirmed the ownership of Goodyear Baseball when staff was negotiating a new contract with Goodyear Baseball, LLC. 13. Allegations against Councilmember Cavalier. Similarly, Ms. Greener levied allegations of conflicts of interest of Councilmember Cavalier. When I pointed out that Councilmember Cavalier had not voted on anything to do with baseball since I had been there, she advised me that I needed to, quote, go back further, close quote. Ms. Greener's misplaced allegations show a lack of understanding of the applicable conflict of interest laws and the basic fact that circumstances change. Once Councilmember Cavalier became an investor in one of the companies controlled by Jack Rose, he recused himself from all votes on matters involving all companies controlled by Jack Rose. 14. Ms. Greener's interference with other department matters. Ms. Greener went on to challenge personnel actions taken in other departments within the city, including the police department, risk management, and finance. Without substantiation, she alleged corruption in our police department and of our chief of police. She asked for clarification for the 30 employees she claims were fired. 30 were not fired. 15. Ms. Greener's wish list. During our meeting, I asked her what she wanted to see happen. In summary of what Ms. Greener wants is for the following 8 individuals to be terminated. Deputy City Manager Brian Dalkey, Police Chief Mark Brown, HR Director Kay Wilkinson, IT Director Kathy Fernandez, Finance Director Larry Lang, City Attorney Rorick Massey, Risk Manager Dean Kogenauer, and Jesse Cisneros. And for those employees who have previously left the city to be brought back so the city could, quote, go back to things like they were before, close quote. 16, my response. There is no going back. The city cannot go back and restore the pre-Jesse Cisneros, pre-Kathy Fernandez management, nor is it in the best interest of the city to do so. The IT department has long been an underperforming department. As early as 2001, outside consultants hired to review the department identified deficiencies in the department. The exact quote from the 2001 report was, quote, the current environment reflects a shortage of human resources and a shortage of specific technical skills. and both facilities exist in a complex relationship with each other." Close quote. Past surveys reflected dissatisfaction with the IT department. Although certain changes have been made over time, the fundamental problems with the IT department were not being addressed by prior management. Changes had to be made for city staff to fulfill its mission to the citizens of Goodyear. Today, it is being fulfilled under the strong leadership of Kathy Fernandez. Moreover, management does not intend to seek Ms. Greener's approval for every employment action taken or to disclose to her actions taken in connection with the employment of other employees. To the extent possible, and subject to Arizona's public record laws, we try and protect our employees, current and former, from the public disclosure of disciplinary actions taken against them. I can assure you that many of the employees whose causes Ms. Greener purports to champion would not appreciate her representations on their behalf. City staff will continue to respond to public records requests from Ms. Greener and her sister, but any other communications will continue to be channeled through the city attorney and will be limited to matters concerning her employment. As a new manager, my goal is to move the city forward and not to look backwards. When I was hired, I made clear my view that employees were an organization's most valuable asset. I meant that then, and I mean that now. I am not naive to believe that this agency or any agency does not have areas within which improvement can be made. And I expect as I become more familiar with this organization and its strengths and weaknesses, changes will be made. With respect to employee relations, I am moving forward to open direct lines of communications with employees to keep them informed of events in the city I believe to be of interest to them, to identify the strengths and weaknesses of this organization, and to identify concerns they may have. But any changes made will be a measured reaction based on a full understanding of all of the facts, and not as a knee-jerk reaction to the complaints when it is clear that the complainant does not have all of the facts. Mr. Mayor, if I could now make a brief statement with regards to Ms. Miller's allegation.
Yes.
This is my response to Ms. Patricia Miller and her questions and allegations regarding the city's financial practices and capital improvement project CIP budget. 1, according to Patricia Miller, there is, based on her interpretation of the sources and uses spreadsheet, a $5 million loss in the city's general fund that needs to be explained. Ms. Miller's interpretation is erroneous as it focuses only on the portion of the general fund addressing operating revenues and operating expenditures for the general fund. When viewed in its entirety, which includes carryovers from previous years and contingency, and after accounting for other sources of revenue, there is an ending general fund balance of approximately $2.6 million. 2, Ms. Miller questions the lack of specific reports for each CIP project. Ms. Miller is correct that the Finance Department has not established nor created separate reports for each CIP project. As Ms. Miller knows, as reflected in one of her records requests, there are a series of reports available that track all information relevant to CIP projects. These reports are in a form suitable for the reporting needs of the Finance Department. Although the report the Finance Department maintains is suitable for its needs, staff has recognized that it is not as suitable for the management of CIP projects. The city recently procured a new software program that will allow the CIP project coordinator to better manage CIP projects. Once implemented, the city will have the ability to track and generate separate reports for each CIP project. 3, Ms. Miller questioned whether the city prepares periodic trial balances on its funds. The answer is yes. 4, Ms. Miller questions why the CIP in review is scheduled for September 22, 2008, claiming the information should be readily available now. The CIP in review is in the process of being completed. The fiscal year ended June 30, 2008, and staff has had to wait for certain information necessary to complete the report, some of which was not received until August. 5, Ms. Miller asks whether the city needs to clean up, quote, overspent fund balances, close quote. The city maintains more than 60 funds, such as general fund, sewer fund, highway user fund, water fund, etc. The city has not overspent any of these fund balances. This will be confirmed by the city's auditors. 6, Ms. Miller raises a number of questions about the city's expenditure of bond funds. Her questions represent a misunderstanding of the city's processes for issuing bonds and its budgeting practices. With respect to bond financing, the goal of the Finance Department is to minimize the city's interest expenses and to comply with the statutory requirements applicable to bond financing. The two overriding concerns are, 1, to minimize interest costs, and 2, to ensure that the city spends the funds within 3 years to avoid financial penalties. Accordingly, the city will often complete an improvement before the actual bond sale. The city will use general funds to pay for the project and then replenish the general fund with the proceeds from the sale. The CIP section of the city's budget reflects new CIP projects over a 5-year time period, and it reflects carryover CIP projects, projects that were supposed to have been completed in prior years but were not. The carryover CIP projects are reflected in the sources and uses statements. In the 2008-2009 budget, the city anticipates completing new CIP projects budgeted to cost $27,317,436. Of these projects, only one, an additional expansion of the city's wastewater treatment facility, will be funded from $8 million of bond revenues. Impact fees and other sources will be used to pay the remaining $19 million plus. However, as reflected in the sources and uses statement, the city anticipates issuing approximately $31 million in bonds, which will be used to pay $8 million for the wastewater treatment plant expansion and $23 million in bonds for CIP projects carried over from prior years. 7, with respect to Ms. Miller's questions about the funding for the infrastructure at the ballpark, because we knew that project would be completed and would be completed within 3 years, we sold bonds prior to the completion of the infrastructure. This infrastructure is being paid for by the proceeds of the 2007-2008 bonds. Mr. Mayor, that's the conclusion of my report.
Okay, thank you very much. Just want to compliment the city manager and his staff for the comprehensive report, very comprehensive, and also compliment the entire city for adhering to a policy of openness to our public and to the press. For the inquiries of council, of staff by council.
Can I ask a question on this?
Sure.
I'm just curious for the public information. How many hours do you think that the city has spent on this case?
We really don't. We discussed that today, Ms. Lord, and we can't really make an estimate. It would have to be a guess. It is extensive. I mean, city attorneys, for example, your city attorney, Rourke, was here till after 1 a.m. one morning reading emails. I mean, so that's the dedication and the commitment that city staff made. And he had his assistant city attorneys reading other emails. And so it has been hundreds of hours, just hundreds of hours.
I just want the public to know that we do take this seriously and that we've gone to extremes, I think, to get the information out. So
thank you.
I applaud the staff for doing a great job and spending that amount of time.
Thank you. And I think it's important to reiterate what I said during the report about Ms. Greener's responses. There has been no compromise of any of the personal data of citizens nor employees.
Appreciate that.
Okay. Any questions of staff by council? Seeing none, I'm going to adjourn the meeting, and why don't we start up? We have an exec session or a special meeting, which will probably lead to an exec session at 7:15.
Okay.
Is that good? This meeting's adjourned.